Alrighty, and attendees. Good evening, everybody. We're going to start in a moment, so just give us a couple of seconds. Just a heads up, we are recording this special webinar. We'll start in a minute or so. We're going to let some more people show up and enter. Go. Alrighty, so we'll begin shortly. Just a reminder, although it's a webinar, we are recording the session. Alrighty, 10 more seconds. Alrighty, fantastic. Good evening. As I said, this is recorded. My name is Eli Saltzman. I'm an associate research professor of Israel Studies and the director of the Gildenhorn Institute for Israel Studies at the University of Maryland. I would like to thank my colleagues Avis Koyman and Srushti Suresh for all their assistance behind the scenes that makes this and other webinars possible. I would like to mention that our next special webinar, titled Women in the IDF, Insights from the Israel-Hamas War, will take place on Monday, October 28th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. For more information and to register, please visit www.israelstudies.umd.edu. I'd like to thank you once again for joining us for this fascinating talk titled Religious Divides Inside Israel, post-October 7th, 2023, featuring Dr. Rivka Neriya-Ben Shahar, whom I'll present momentarily. So just to contextualize, if you wish, to provide some background for this talk. While a great deal has been said about the military as well as the diplomatic ramifications of the horrible October 7th attack and the subsequent wars across the region, we oftentimes overlook the dramatic impact of that day on Israeli society itself. Several fundamental socio-political cleavages long present in the country's social and political fabric have become more pronounced as different segments of Israeli society react to the heightened sense of threat and insecurity. More specifically, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities, or Haredi communities, traditionally more insular and much less supportive of military service, have been facing increased scrutiny and tension with secular and national religious groups who view military service as a civic duty. Today's talk will fill this void in a way and evaluate the significance as well as the implications of these social and political divides as they are reflected in images and content used by the general and sectorial Israeli media post-October 7th. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Rivka Neriya-Ben Shahar, who is a senior lecturer at Sapir Academic College in Sderot, Israel, where she teaches classes on research methods, communication, religion, and gender. She is also a scholar at the Israel Democracy Institute, IDI, where she studies media usage among the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Dr. Neriya-Ben Shahar investigates mass media from the perspective of religion and gender. Her research addresses the tensions existing between religious values and new technologies among women in Old Order Amish and ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities. Her book, Strictly Observant, Amish and the Ultra-Orthodox Jewish Women Negotiating Media, was published by Rutgers University Press in early 2024, so just recently. She is currently an international fellow with the University of Pennsylvania's Katz Center. She will speak for about 35-40 minutes, and then we will open the floor, quote unquote, for questions. So please feel free to type those in the designated Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. Dr. Neriya-Ben Shahar, the virtual floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Saltzman. Thank you so much, Avis, for all your help. It's a lot of work behind the scan, so thank you so much. So let's go directly to the religious divides inside Israel. So if we want to figure it out, we should start with the understanding that there are many, many groups, but there are three main Jewish religious groups in Israel: the ultra-Orthodox, the national religious, we call in Hebrew Datim Leumim, but in English here in the US they call modern Orthodox, and the secular. So let's understand, what does it mean? First of all, to be ultra-Orthodox community in Israel. So there are about 10.5% of the Jewish population above 20 years. However, they have such a high fertility rate, about 7 children per woman, which means that if you look at them in perspective of their real part of the population, they are about 13%, more than a million people. And they are strictly religious. It means that I assume that you know some basic thing about Jews. So there are so many ways to interpret or understand the religious law. The ultra-Orthodox always take the strict option, which you can see that modern Orthodox will negotiate also with the modern world, and secular, basically they don't have to obedient to the Jewish law, but the ultra-Orthodox always take the most strictly option. And for the last 70-something years, there are Society of Scholars. This is a unique phenomenon. This term coined by Professor Menachem Friedman, and it means that most of the men in this society only study religious studies, basically Talmud, in the yeshiva. And it happened just after the state of Israel started, and it never happened in the Jewish history, and to the best of my knowledge, it never happened in other places, just because it doesn't make sense that all the men in one community will not work or do other things and just sit and study the whole day. It happened because of the law that the Israeli state decided that the men should must go to the army. When the ultra-Orthodox asked for exemption, they said, okay. Ben-Gurion gave them 400 people, just a limit, and these people can postpone their joining to the army, but they can't work or study at the university at the same time. They must stay in the yeshiva. He couldn't imagine that after 75 years, most of the ultra-Orthodox men, some 100,000 people, will stay in the yeshiva. They will be very poor, and it will create huge challenge for the Israeli community and the Israeli modern state. The national religious, okay, they are, again, here you call them modern Orthodox. They are about the same population in terms of the adults, but in terms of children, they are more than the Western society, but they are about 4 children per family. They, like in the United States, try very hard to combine between their religious value and secular values. What you can see is they are part of the academic life, part of the economy, and in Israel, of course, they join the army, and you can see them with this sort of kippah, the hair cover for men, but they are at the same time religious and Western. The secular, there are most of the Israeli population, so there are more than 45% are secular and about 33% are traditional, which means that some of them can have kiddush on Friday night meal and then they watch television, or they're going to the synagogue on Saturday, on Shabbat, and then they go to shopping or for a trip. So they try to combine in another way. However, in terms of, they don't find themselves religious, so they are the most of the Israeli population. And I just want to make sure that I said, and I'll say it again, there are many groups in every group. And also these people have multiple levels of liberal values. The fact that you're secular doesn't mean that you support women's rights. And however, mostly they are part of the Western world in terms of their dress, their behavior, and many of their values. And here you can see it just, in the pie, you can see, okay, that this group are very small, the modern Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox. However, their influence on the Israeli society is very high. So if we want to understand the religious divides after the October 7th, we must start from the religious divide before October 7th. So when we speak about the religious divide, first of all, we put the line between the ultra-Orthodox and national religious or modern Orthodox and the secular. These people keep the commandments and try to be religious as much as they could, and these people are secular, and again, there are many subgroups. However, when you look on the divide from the perspective of the army and the workforce, the ultra-Orthodox are in one side, when in the other side, you can see the national religious and the secular. When you look on it from perspective of political divide, the left wing today are mostly secular, while the right wing are mostly national religious and secular. The ultra-Orthodox that used to be or part of the left or join the left wing when it was good for them, for the education, for the budget they need for the community, became more and more right wing. And in terms of democratic values, you can almost totally separate between the secular in one side and the ultra-Orthodox and the national religious in another side that less support democratic values. The last year, let's say from January 2023, started with a huge change in Israel. Bagatz, what Supreme Court here, and was under attack from the new government, and Yariv Levin started a what he called a legal reform that changed the whole system in Israel. He argued that the system is not well. However, in my opinion, and of course all the political aspects that you will hear from me are only my opinion. I don't try to represent anyone else, but in my opinion, he tried to break everything in Israel, especially the very, very sensitive system of checks and balance that we have in Israel. We are very vulnerable, democratic. We are only 75 years. Everything is very fragile, and he just tried to change everything. So the religious divide is connected very, very close to the political divide, the army, the workplace, the democratic, and all the legal divides. Okay, now we will start with what happened after October 7th. The first some weeks, I called it social honeymoon. I'm not sure that there is a term like that, but this is my understanding. It was really unbelievable to be in Israel in this time. Everybody just ran around, tried to help other people. People were volunteered for hundreds of places. People build, help, gave, took, try to do whatever they can to recover, first of all, from the trauma, but to help the people that really affected by October 7th. The press were full of photos of ultra-Orthodox people, men that joined the army. We had a new government, Gadi Eisenkot and Gadi, I'm so excited that I forgot. Benny Gantz and Benny Eisenkot just joined the government. And of course, the government decides that the legal reform will be paused and we will start all over again with a new community. However, after some weeks, and especially around the first deal with Hamas around November 2023, raised many religious and moral questions. Of course, in my opinion, it's sure we just need to bring them back home. They are our family, our friends, our workers, the people that just have been there in this horrible time, and this is our religious, moral, and civilian duty to bring them back home. However, other people, many of them from my family, said, no, it's against the moral. They are, hopefully, there are some dozen of people still alive, but if we will free so many terrorists, they will kill us again. I would say, okay, now the army will do something that they will not kill us again, but these people are already there. We must bring them back. However, it raised many, many religious and moral questions in contemporary Israel. Another huge issue is the army needs. I just spoke with Professor Zaltzman about my brother. He was an officer in the army, injured very hard in Gaza. So in the next, months, he will not get back to the army. Thank God he's alive. But many, many soldiers killed, other soldiers injured. There are many soldiers with PTSD. So the army needs many new soldiers. So we looked around and find many potential soldiers in the ultra-Orthodox community. They are healthy, they are young, they are strong, they can join the army. However, they don't do that because of their values and because they think that the army will force them to become secular and to leave the yeshiva, which is not really true, but it's very complicated. It's also very, very hard time for the military reserve members, what we call miluim. There are people with families, with business, with academic degrees, with everything you can imagine. Just the 3 people that killed today in Gaza, all of them have families. They are more than 30 years old. This is a horrible situation because they and their family, they sacrifice their life. They sacrifice everything they can. The women mostly stay alone. There are many women in the army, as you said, for the next week presentation, next time presentation, but many men stay at home with the kids and many women went also to the army, but the kids pay unbelievable price of the situation. I can say about my other brother that he's in the reserve duty from October 7th, more than a year in the army. In the beginning, they almost didn't see him. Then he came back home 3 times a week or separate the week or whatever. Now he's again in the army, which means for the children, instability, so much mess in the family and in the workplaces, and also huge financial price in terms of businesses and work and everything else. So here we have a huge discussion between the ultra-Orthodox and from the other side, the national ultra-Orthodox, the national and the religious and the secular. However, at the same time, the ultra-Orthodox and the national religious requested to continue the legal reform. Why not? We're in the middle of the war, but there is an opportunity to change everything from the basis, so why not do that? And here again, you can see that the divides move from one place to another, because here you can see soldiers that fight together and try to help each other. But when they start to talk about the legal reform, they just can't agree. These people think that they save Israel. These people think that they break Israel. And unfortunately, Yariv Levin and also Simcha Rotman try very hard to continue the legal reform. Why do they do that? So the ultra-Orthodox basically prefer to have the legal reform because it will enable them to continue the life without joining the army and get all the rights in Israel. The national religious believe that if the Supreme Court will be much weaker or more right-wing, they would have more settlements and hopefully everything will be fine, but the secular just continue to go every week. When I stayed in Israel, I went every week to all the protests against the government, trying to explain, trying to just scream and try to say something about our democratic values to just break all the way down. The ultra-Orthodox, after some weeks of shocking, continue to request the government support. So the money that goes, the budget that go for the war is unbelievable amount of money that could be invested in so many important things like health and education. Now almost everything go for, I would say, the stupid war. However, the ultra-Orthodox says that they will not sign the new budget bill if they will not get more support for their education. So again, it separates the Israeli community. The national religious are angry with them. The secular are very angry with them, but they say we are part of the party and we need to get our support. Another religious device is I would say, is a dream of Netanyahu about the total victory, or he will win everyone and then we will know that he is the right king, thank God for him. So the national religious support him, most of them, and they say, which is true, we sacrificed many soldiers. So we have the right to say, let's continue the war till everything will be fine and we will win. The ultra-Orthodox support the war. They say, yeah, go for it. Amazing. You are doing such a good work. However, they are not there. The secular, perhaps it's again very simplistic, but there are again many different groups in every group. But let's say that the secular and many of the traditional want peace, and they mostly want to return to normal time. And I would say that realistic people understand that there is no total victory. There is, at the end, we will have to have sort of ceasefire and do something to heal our land. In terms of the media, here you can see a very famous caricature that could be found in the Shai Charka made it. It was in the Makor Rishon. It's national ultra-Orthodox, national religious modern Orthodox paper. And you can see soldiers, okay? Can you see it? Yeah, okay. You can see soldiers in the army taking one soldier that injured very badly, and on the injured soldier set a yeshiva bocher, ultra-Orthodox man that study in the yeshiva, and he continued to study. What he says is, אל תדאגו חבר'ה, הלימוד מוקדש לרפואתו ולהצלחתכם, which means, don't worry guys, I study just for his health, his recovery, and that you will succeed in the war. This caricature started huge discussion, lots of angry from the ultra-Orthodox community. They said, no, it's not true. We really study for they really believe that when they study Torah, they support us and they defend all the Israeli community from everything happened to them. However, you can see that the person that created the caricature and also the people that support him say, no, it's definitely not true. We take you with everything else that we need to do. And here is the other side. This photo took by Oren Ben Chakun. And you can see that after the Supreme Court decided that the ultra-Orthodox should go to the army, there is no more choice, at least 3,000 people. And many ultra-Orthodox just went to the streets for huge protests. And here you can see that they wrote something like, Al tigu בישיבות, don't touch the yeshiva. אני בן תורה שלא משתף פעולה. I am person that study Torah, and then I will not collaborate with the Israeli government. We need to stay religious. they really believe that there is a part of a trying of the government just try to make them secular, and because of that, they ask them to go to the army, because the truth is that in the army, even many modern Orthodox became secular, but it's hard to say that the army created that. So it's another huge discussion. But here you can see the situation that these people go to the streets and just scream, bring them back and change the government. These people just go to the street and say, let us continue our life. We want only to study Torah, and it basically separates the Israeli community. With all that, we should take in account some very small issues. Netanyahu and the investment, okay? So at this time, if he would have been in the United States, I was so impressed by the fact that Trump and this investment happened so quickly from the time that the court started to the time that it ended. It was perhaps some weeks, some months, but then, it just ended. With Netanyahu, it could take so many years, because I would say that our judges take the time, they have lots of time, and I believe that he would be happy to continue the war for years, and people will continue to die just because he doesn't want to go to the jail. So when we're taking this in account, we understand that all the interests of the ultra-Orthodox, of the national religious with the settlement, just join many of Netanyahu's interests. When Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are part of the government, both of them religious, basically sort of modern Orthodox. Smotrich is a minister of treasure. I suppose that you heard about what we had the last weeks with Moody's and S&P. So he said that there are anti-Semitism against Israel. And I would say, look on the report, it's not anti-Semitism, it's you, okay? He also has sort of part of the Ministry of Defense, which means that he used his power to have more and more settlements. When Ben-Gvir said that he will be the Minister of National Security, he will save us, he will work hard, that it will be no violence in the streets. And the situation in Israel, even without the war, is horrible. There are huge amount of violence attack within the Arab community that should be treated with help, and we should help them to do something with the social problem. Of course, not just to let them kill each other. And also he sent many policemen to all the protests, and they hurt the people, which means that he tried to support Netanyahu and himself. If it's not enough, there are unbelievable amount of conspiracy theories in Israel. Why the October 7th happened? It's very hard for people to believe that we had so many mistakes. So they try to say that these people started it, that the IDF helped Hamas or whatever. Again, the protests take from all the sides, okay? Just occupy the streets and create a lot of instability. And I want to show you a very short movie from the Facebook of Eretz Nehederet, which is satiric program in the television about soldiers that come back from the army and what's happened to him. So one moment, hopefully I will succeed to do that. 1 minute.
היינו יודעים טוב מאוד מה קורה שם בשטח, נכון או לא? לא רבים. אולי במקום להאשים את העולם שפשוט...
Can you see?
האירוע מנוהל יופי יופי.
בוא נשאל אותו, הוא מגיע משם, הוא יודע הכי טוב, נכון?
Can you see? Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start from the beginning and I'll try to translate. Okay, here is a soldier. He came from the army. I'm sorry.
אם לא התנתקות, היינו יודעים טוב.
This is Friday night, and I'm sorry, this is Saturday lunch. All the family came together to see the soldiers that came from Gaza, and they discuss who to blame with what's happened in Gaza.
את העולם שפשוט ינהל את האירוע. האירוע מנוהל יופי יופי.
בוא נשאל את עופר, הוא מגיע משם, הוא יודע הכי טוב, נכון עופר? עופר.
עופר.
מה?
עופר.
עופר. מה אתה חושב?
כמה טוב שבאתי הביתה, כמה טוב.
This is a very famous Arik Einstein song. כמה טוב שבאתי הביתה, how much I'm happy to come back home. So here is in the opposite way, how he miserable to see everybody continue to scream on each other and discuss everything, when in Gaza he saw that people could work together, but also all the horrible thing.
עזבו מה נשמע, עזבו איך היה, 60 יום אותה הופיע, ישנתי שנייה.
He said that for 60 days he stayed with the same underwears and he didn't sleep. And now he come back and what he can see there.
אהוד ברק תכנן את הכל.
כמה טוב שבאתי הביתה, קצת הילד, אגב קצת שבוי, הוצצתי פירים, פתחתי צירים, איבדתי שם שני חברים, מההופעה מקיבוץ הגוש.
He lost two friends, one from a settlement and one from kibbutz, which is secular. So he tried to say, in the army, we were very good together. What happened here?
אתם החלשתם את העם עם הרפורמה הזאת.
זה הסרבנות, בגלל זה היה להם עומק. מאיפה?
כמה זה טוב, כמה זה טוב, כבר כמה.
לא אכפת לך מה חטופים, זה מה שאתה אומר לי.
כמה שזה טוב, טוב.
כמה טוב שבאת הביתה, נכון שהמן ידעו על הכל.
Here again, they mention many of the conspiration, that the intelligence knew everything before, that Ehud Barak started everything, and the other people say to them, no, you don't care about the hostages.
היום באולפן של כאן, הורי חטופים יגיעו כששניהם על קוצים, ניתן להם לריב פיצוצים, פיצוצים.
הכל פה נשאר, אותו הדבר, כאילו שום דבר לא נשבר. כאילו שום דבר לא נשבר. נשאר אותו הדבר. טוב, אני זז.
מה זה, אז לאן?
אני רוצה לנוח. אני הולך להתרענן. אני אחזור עוד 60 יום.
Then he decided to go back to the army, to have some rest.
הכל בגללך.
בגללי, למה מה אני אמרתי?
הרגזת אותי.
They continue to fight.
בדיוק כמוני. זה מה שישוב כמוך, יש לו מוח. מוח לא מספיק, צריך גם כוח. ראית מה קרה רק עם המוח שלנו.
Okay, let's go back to the presentation. One moment, I'm sorry. Okay, here we can see again in this short movie the situation that the soldier himself said, I could stay there. I could have really good relationships with a soldier from the settlement and another soldier from that is secular, but at home everybody is fighting. There are also some, and I'll continue, I'll almost done. There are many theological and religious questions. The ultra-Orthodox, the religious, and I would assume that even the secular try to ask themselves, where was God on October 7th? And also, how much this is our fault, how much this is their fault, and fault could be, you know, the Hamas fault, it could be politician fault. I would say that these are the same answers as the Holocaust. I'm sure that God decided that we deserve to suffer a lot, perhaps because of our behavior. I don't know. I'm not his representative in the world. But I think that if we will continue to blame each other, we will not go anywhere. Another question is, and this is a religious question, should we join the IDF? So some ultra-Orthodox decided that the answer is yes, but most of them, the answer is no, because they prefer their religious values more than their citizens' values. However, there are some what we call national ultra-Orthodox, Khardal, Haredi Leumi, that they are more religious than the modern Orthodox. Let's say some friends of Smotrich, that their sons also don't join the IDF because they believe that the IDF is too much left-wing. So we can see again the connection between the religious divide, the political divide, the army, and the workforce. I would just say that we had already 2 temples. One destroyed due to idol worship, forbidden sexual relations, and bloodshed. The second because of baseless hatred. We almost have, I will not say the 3rd temple, but we have a very nice Israeli country, and hopefully we will not break it again. After all that, you can ask if we still have any hope. I would say that in Hebrew, the word brit means alliance, but also circumcision. So I would say that we need a new brit, a new alliance. Other people in other places had blood, sweat, and tears, and we also, hopefully we had enough blood, we invested a lot of sweat. Hopefully we will have some more tears and we will continue to build our amazing place. I can just tell you in my personal note, yesterday my daughter, my 2nd daughter, became an officer in the Israeli army. My oldest is an officer, my 2nd one became officer, and I watched the ceremony from here, from Philadelphia. I try not to cry, but at the end, after Shlomi Binder said, we take the responsibility of what happened on October 7th, we will try to do our best to fix everything. And then I saw the Israeli flag and I heard Hatikva, the national song. And I found myself standing here in Philadelphia, singing with all the soldiers and crying because I have tikva, I have hope. Hopefully we will manage, we will continue, and we will have some hope. Thank you so much, and I'll finish with the Israeli flag with the symbol of bring them back home. Hopefully we'll see them again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rivka. That was very, very insightful and very, very interesting. And thank you so much for sharing your personal stories. I think that kind of tells a lot and conveys your deep commitment to these topics. While I wait for people to ask questions, please, folks, feel free to ask questions because I can speak for 24 hours straight and ask multiple questions, even about my own questions. So there's a box at the bottom of the screen, Q&A. Anything that pops to your mind, please do share. That's something that enables us to have a conversation of sorts. So I'll start, and then you'll join me, hopefully, with asking Rivka a bunch of questions. you talked about Haredi Jews or about the different sects in Israeli society and the Israeli religious sectors, if you'd like. But these are changing as well, right? There's movement there. It's not clear cut. There's some fault lines. There's some overlap there. There's new sectors or new subsectors within the Haredi ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities. Can you talk about that and how that fits into your presentation or your argument, so to speak, if you don't mind?
Mm-hmm. So I said sometimes that there are many subgroups. So if I would start to talk about every, it will take till next Monday. If you have time, I can stay now. We have Yom Kippur in the middle.
So let me interrupt you for a second and then kind of perhaps focus your question a bit more. Then, for example, you mentioned Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. Are they religious Zionist or modern Orthodox, or are they Hardali, for example, a completely different thing? And what is the difference? And how does that fit, if that makes more sense?
Yeah. Okay, so Bezalel Smotrich is Hardal, basically Hardal. However, he ran to the parliament with the name of Hatzionut Hadatit, which is basically modern Orthodox, much wider sphere of what he really thinks. So I'm sure that many of the people that vote for him couldn't believe that he thinks that he will be the Ministry of the Treasure and Israel will have money if we will believe in God, as he said in an interview to Mishpacha. So I would say that he's much more right-wing and religious than many of the people that vote for him. Itamar Ben-Gvir is another story. To the best of my knowledge, he became religious, but he is a person that should, if not go to the jail, he has so many incidents against him. I just can't understand what happened to people that vote for him and what happened to Netanyahu that just because of his interest allow him to do whatever he does. It's very hard for me to explain that. But let's say that if the Central Bureau of Statistics will call both of them and ask, are you Haredi, modern Orthodox, traditional or secular? Both of them would force to answer modern Orthodox. But this is much more complicated than that.
I hear you. Thank you so much. So we have a first question from the audience. Please add more. It's the fun part of this conversation. And I see that somebody raised their hand. So David Segal asks, how do attitudes about the two-state solution intersect with the religious divide? Very briefly, I see you're kind of exacerbated in a way.
Yeah. So I would say that it's hard to find religious people, religious modern Orthodox and Haredi that believes that there is a solution of two states. You can find it much more within the secular. I would also say that perhaps there are a very small number of traditional people that believe in that. This is very, very hard for people to understand that we are there in a very, I'm in the US, so I said there, but we are like here in Israel in a very small place. The Arab and the Jews together, we should find solution. We can't just continue the same way for hundreds of years. So we try a lot of wars. It didn't work. We can try to kill each other again and again. I would prefer the solution of two states, but I can say that it's very rare to see religious people that this is their understanding or attitude. I hope that I answered you.
Yeah, you did, but let me just, for the sake of David Segal, in a way, unless he corrects me in the Q&A box, do you see differences? So, for example, Ovadia Yosef was among the senior religious figures in the early 1990s who, in a way, as a result of his support, facilitated the Oslo Accords, for example, right?
So let's separate between two states and Oslo.
Yeah, okay.
Different.
Yeah.
But I would say that Rav Ovadia Yosef and also many famous rabbis from the last generation, they were much more pragmatic. And they also really believe that we should keep the people alive. And unfortunately, the new generation and many of the other, they have, I would say, more interest. And I just can't understand how there are rabbis that they are quiet when we have hostages in Gaza. I can't understand that. So,
Alrighty.
what?
Oh, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So the connection sometimes could be very harmful, I would say.
I hear you. Alrighty. Larry Wolf, who's a very good friend and supporter of the Gildenhorn Institute. Hold on, let me allow this. There you go, Larry, you're on.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes.
you, Larry. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay, yeah, I had a question. Well, it's two questions, actually. One is, my understanding is that the Haredi community is sort of breaking into different pieces, that it's not one single group, that there are now increasing numbers of Haredi feminists, Haredim who are turning liberal, and increasing numbers of Haredi young people leaving the Haredi movement. Is that true? Is that happening? What's the future look like? I'll ask you a second one. Because I'm very connected, but what's the future of what you might call liberal Judaism in Israel? Liberal meaning non-Orthodox groups, including conservative and reform. That's all.
So I'll try to answer both of them. First of all, there are liberal ultra-Orthodox, there are feminist ultra-Orthodox, there are youths that leave the community. It's very hard to talk in terms of number, but unfortunately, there are very small groups. They get fights from inside their community and from outside the community. However, they get a lot of attention from the secular world, a lot of attention from the press, and a lot of attention from the academic world. So hopefully there will be enough people like all the studies that conducted about them. I want to be very optimistic. I want to believe that hopefully even the next parliament, we will have ultra-Orthodox women inside and more women. Hopefully we will have more liberal ultra-Orthodox, or what we call mamach, Mamlechti Haredi schools. It means that they are school, the ultra-Orthodox, everything ultra-Orthodox, but there are studies, a curriculum like the secular and the modern Orthodox. Hopefully. Unfortunately, there are many obstacles against this development. In terms of the liberal group, I would say that something very good happened to this group from January 2023. Before that, if you follow Guy Rolnick at The Marker, he tried to explain so many problems, and he said, why do you stay at home? The Israel is just falling apart. Nobody really listened. Perhaps what happened when Yariv Levin started the legal reform, people started to figure out that what you have doesn't mean that you will have it tomorrow. Someone can just come and take your rights from you. And here, the liberal community, and they could be, I saw in many protests, I felt that I was the only religious person. Then I found many religious people that I know, that they don't dress like me, but they are religious, and they came to all the protests. And then I started to see some ultra-Orthodox, that they understood that the Supreme Court at the end support them, because, you know, democratic values basically are for you, are not against you, even though some people just can't understand that. In terms of the reform and conservative, let's say that there are governments that would support them more than this government. However, I think that they also join the fight against the legal reform because they understood that the liberal values are so important and we just need to defend it because it's just under attack. I hope that I answered you.
I hope so too, but if not, Larry, please feel free to follow up with another question. That's perfectly fine. We can clarify, we can go into the weeds, so to speak. Aner Tal, who's a visiting professor from Israel, who teaches a class on Israeli entrepreneurship this semester, asks the following: What, in your perspective, are the chances for a new leadership for the Orthodox and for the religious Zionists, which would allow us to form a national unity government in the mending of social rifts? In other words, can there be a breakdown of the Netanyahu bloc, or gush in Hebrew?
Look, if you would ask me 5 years ago if Bennett will be the prime minister together with Yair Lapid and Mansour Abbas, I'm sorry, I would say this is such a nice joke. We saw it. I think that now Netanyahu and some other corruption and some horrible people around him are just the block between united government of people that want to see a better Israel. Unfortunately, until we will solve this problem, we are in a very bad situation. But there are so many good, amazing people in Israel. They could be secular, they could be traditional, they could be religious, and they could be ultra-Orthodox. We want a better place. And I think that there are common values. We could talk, we could fix so many things. We just need to be more humble, perhaps. This is something I really learned from the Amish. The humble is very rooted values for them. But in Israel, people always think that they have like everything, they know everything, they are smarter than somebody else. So if we will be more humble, hopefully we could have better government, better parliament, and better place. It could be. I have some hope, I promise.
All righty. Well, I'm still waiting for more questions from the audience. I'm going to plug in one question. You showed a clip from Eretz Nehederet, which is kind of the equivalent of SNL here in the United States. So it's a satire comedy show that kind of captures the zeitgeist in Israel. A lot of very wonderful actors and extremely talented scriptwriters. But at the end of the day, the clip showed a secular family for the most part, in a way. Can you talk about some of the conversations that are being held around the table of a Haredi family? Perhaps a weekday, perhaps a Shabbat dinner, if at all? Is it about the politics? Is it about the social issues? Is it still about, the parasha or whatever text that was taught yesterday or today or whatever?
Okay, so this is another huge divide. I wish that everybody could visit at least for one Shabbat, for one, from Friday to Saturday night, 1 or 2 ultra-Orthodox family, 1 or 2 modern Orthodox, and everything. Most of the ultra-Orthodox, and I would say even the national ultra-Orthodox, the group I grew up with, and let's say Smotrich, Shabbat table invested only for religious issues. They read the Torah, they talk about that. You even can't say something about, let's say, what's happened to you this week. So it's very religious time, singing religious song, eating, and especially studying together. However, after the meal, people can talk. And I assume that many of them even talk politics, even though there are many ultra-Orthodox and national ultra-Orthodox homes that they will not read newspaper on Shabbat at all, because they say, okay, this is secular thing, we don't want even to touch it on Shabbat. Move all the way to the modern Orthodox. I can say that I was shocked the first time I joined this Shabbat dinner. I didn't know that there is an option to talk politics near the table. So people talk politics, they break everything, they build everything very similar to the secular, but they don't have the television on the same time. And then they stop and they sing some song, and sometimes they say something from the Torah, but it's totally different. I've never been to the Friday dinner with secular, but as I heard, it's very similar to what you can see from the Eretz Nehederet, because the television is on, people are there, they're talking together, they're happy together, and mostly they talk politics. So it's very, very different. This is not connected specifically to the war, but I can say that in terms of the wartime, I assume that there are more war news or politics that just sneak to the table, even if this is against the basic values.
Alrighty, again, still waiting for some questions from the audience. Feel free to type those in the Q&A. And if you wish to speak, we can certainly do that, as Larry Wolf did a couple of seconds ago, a couple of moments ago. So let me ask another question. The rift between Haredi Jews or ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel and the secular sector, the secular community, is not new. It's been going on for a lot of time, many decades. There's some ups and downs, obviously. Is October 7th a turning point? Is this kind of a point of no return? Is there a way that this will become, like in previous decades, a blip, just a data point along this spectrum, this dynamic between Haredi Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel, and secular Israelis?
I would say that before the legal reform, I wrote, I said, I tried to speak with wherever I could to explain that, look, the ultra-Orthodox will not go to the army. We should just release them from this issue. Let them study, let them work. At least they will join the workforce, which is very important in terms of taxes and everything. People listened to me. They said, it's not fair. Okay, it's not fair, but now they don't go to the army and at the same time they don't work. So we support them. This is double support. It doesn't make sense. After the beginning of the legal reform, I was shocked to see how many people that I thought that they just gave up went to the street, protests. And many people said to me, you know what? No, we don't want it. They will join, they will do everything. They try to break the democracy. We will show them. Then again, we had the short honeymoon. But now what I found is, I would say, horrible. I think that never in my family, we have a huge family. I have more than 60 cousins. Most of them are religious, modern Orthodox, national ultra-Orthodox, but there are also many ultra-Orthodox. And I saw something that I will not say whom, but one of my relatives published a post on Facebook, a letter for my ultra-Orthodox sister. She doesn't have ultra-Orthodox sister. It means my husband just went to the army again this year. I'm pregnant. I'm alone again with all the work and the 6 kids, and I'm pregnant. Can you please take part of the share? Can you please do also something for this country? We work, we do everything here. It doesn't make sense. So I would say that the fact that the modern Orthodox that say, oh, it's okay, they're a very small group, just let them study, will change something. And also, look, I have so many friends that left Israel. I think about that as well. If it will continue like that, it doesn't make sense. Like, you can't handle the whole country with all the needs, with one group that believes that we will fight forever, other group that will not take part of the fight and ask for support, and a smaller and smaller group of people that do everything. So I think that we arrived to the point that hopefully the war will over tomorrow, and we will sit and talk and find solution, how to get close to each other and how to rebuild the country.
I hear you. I think this is a very powerful comment. Do you think there's a way to accommodate the Haredi or ultra-Orthodox Jewish reluctance to join the military and try to find alternative routes, civil service, national service of whatever kind, hospitals, emergency services, Hatzalah, and the rest, instead as a way to kind of to compensate?
I have a very good idea, which save a lot of money, a lot of people live, and also will make that most of the ultra-Orthodox will not need to join the military service. We can have peace. And I think that it's much simpler than we think. You know what? I'll tell you something. I have a cousin, she lives in she was born in France a month ago, and she said, tomorrow we have a free day here, and all of us go to Germany to buy stuff there. I said, why? So this is the day that France, we basically won in the Second World War. So we have a free day. So the Germans know that. They have huge discount for all the people from here that go there and do their shopping. I listened to her and I thought to myself, hopefully in some years, we will have peace. People can go, to Damascus, to Rabat Ammon, to Egypt, to Gaza, just to do some shopping. The thing could be changed. Sometimes the solution is so just, it's not under the tree. We just need to find the solution. But if I try to be sometimes more realistic, there are many options for the ultra-Orthodox to go to civil service. What's happened at the end in many, I supported it in the past. However, what's happened at the end, that many of them volunteered inside their communities and didn't really took part of so many things that should be done. Also, the other side is, okay, so they will go to the civil service, and then, so we need to solve the problem for the basic, and the basic is their curriculum, especially for boys. Girls are fine, they study most of the core studies that the secular study, not everything, but many of them. Because of that, they can join the workforce. This is another huge problem that all the government just try not to touch. But even if we will solve the problem with the army, we still have a huge problem with the workforce. And I really pray and hope that we will sit and talk and solve everything from the roots. Sometimes I'm very optimistic. We can do that.
Yeah, I hear you. So again, let me kind of circle back to David Siegel's question from a few minutes ago. If peace is a way to solve the issue of the draft of the Haredi ultra-Orthodox Jews joining the military, there needs to be some kind of an ideological adjustment on their side in a way, kind of trying to think about alternative pathways towards peace, right? Because if we are talking about peace, there will be a need for some kind of territorial sacrifice, some kind of a compromise. Does that align with the current state of affairs in terms of the ideological positions on these issues by the Haredi or the more right-wing, religious Zionists?
Unfortunately, this is my hope. This is definitely not their hope. I can even tell you that once I sat near ultra-Orthodox guy in the circle in the Israeli Democracy Institute. And we spoke about so many ultra-Orthodox problems. And we spoke about the fact that, there are 7 kids per family, and he just said to me, I have a solution for everything. And I said to him, wow, great, let me know. And he said, we will just occupy all the territories and we will have enough space for all the ultra-Orthodox people. And I said to him, do you know how many Arabs live there? And we will ask them to go. So I was shocked in the beginning. And then I said, and this is a person that came for the discussion in the Israeli Democracy Institute. What do we need to do to start a real discussion? But sometimes, societies just started all over again after a crisis. Look on Japan, look at Germany, look at the United States after the Civil War. We have some hope, but I would say that many of the optimistic thing I said came from me. It's not based on my research, unfortunately.
I hear you. David Segal, once again, thank you so much for your comment. He has a question. Is there any awareness among any religious groups in Israel of the schism that the division among them is producing among Jews in America? In other words, is there a connection between the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel and Jews in general in the United States? Not necessarily only ultra-Orthodox in Brooklyn or somewhere else for that matter.
Yeah. So there are many family, relatives, friends, connection like that. And sometimes I say to myself, I was so ignorant. I didn't even know that there are so many different groups here in the US, even within the ultra-Orthodox or within the modern Orthodox community. I would say that, if you're a scholar or you have close relatives, you know more. Unfortunately, the Israeli society it's hard to say, but we are very provincial, which means many of us don't really know many things that happened abroad. I can say that every time I'm here, I feel like I really learn a lot of new things, but I still feel so ignorant. So there are some people that know better, but and also the situation here is very, very different because here you don't need to join the army. So the ultra-Orthodox work and they have very different life. The modern Orthodox go to the university very early. So this is huge differences between the Jews in the US and the Jews and in Europe and the Jews in Israel.
All righty, I see that we ran out of questions and it's 7:08, so I think this will be a great point to bring this to an end. I'd like to thank you for your time and for your insights. That was brilliantly done, and I enjoyed it very much. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. We can continue this conversation. I think that one of the members of the audience already asked for your email, so I think you'll get some questions or some queries in the next few days. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope for peace, some quiet, and the return of the hostages as quickly as possible. I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate that. It was an opportunity just to think about all these things that were so, basic. But then when I had to prepare the presentation, I thought a lot about that. So thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. Thank you so much, Rivka. Take care. Have a good night, you all. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.